Now, welcome to our practice. The practice today will be a bit about stillness and how we can manage stillness, how we can create it, and what might come from it as well. For today's practice, as usual, a blanket is nice to have. However, if that's not present today, it doesn't matter as much. We will begin lying down on the backs. So if you like to get there, doing so gently in your own way. And once you're lying down, you can choose the way you position yourself. Taking these few seconds, minutes, to perhaps find comfort. You can choose to extend your legs, prop them up with a cushion under the knees. You can choose to bend the knees, whatever it is for you right now. Perhaps honoring that you're feeling, honoring that is going on within your body. Accepting that is just what is right now, before you move on to what is going on in your mind and how that might impact you emotionally. Allowing a similar approach to that as you acknowledge that is happening at this point. Decide that is just what it is for now, and that could change at any point in time. Perhaps leaving these things not off the mat, but taking them with you from that informed place and experimenting and exploring perhaps what changes you can create. Allowing yourself now to breathe in slowly and deeply. And then exhaling slowly. Breathing in and breathing out. Inhaling and exhaling. As you keep breathing in slowly and out slowly, I have been counting for you to about 4. If you don't mind the counting, you could do the same. Counting the in-breaths to 4, counting the out-breaths to 4, and finding balance in the in and out breaths and their lengths. If counting isn't quite your thing, keep feeling into the length of in and out breaths and aim to balance it that way. If the length of the count of 4 doesn't suit, change it evenly. If this way of breathing, called Samavriti 1, suits you, continue with it. If you're comfortable with holding your breath, you could explore the hold of the breath after the inhalation and the exhalation. So while you breathe in for 4, you could then hold your breath in the body for 4. Then breathe out for 4. And you could hold the breath outside of the body again for 4. And then breathing in again. So that's Samavriti 2. If you choose to hold your breath between the in and out breath, the out and the in breath. If the count of 4 here feels a bit long or strenuous, shorten it, but shortening both holds evenly, maybe down to 3 or even 2. And if the holding of the breath is triggering something within you, then come back to Samavriti 1, the same length for your in and out breath. Counting not yours, you can still just feel into the length of these 4 components of the breath. And if you need a visual, or it would be useful for you to stay concentrated, visualizing a box in front of your closed eyes, while you breathe in up one side, while you hold coming across, exhaling down the other side, and holding again to come back to the start. I will leave you with this breath for a little while, finding your count for it if you are, and settling into the box breath, version 1 or 2. After your next exhalation, let go of the technique of breathing and come back to natural breath in and out of your nostrils. Perhaps allowing a little bit of time to reassess yourself physically, energetically, mentally, emotionally. This breath, if you enjoy it, you can practice it any time. If you find it useful, if it appears to be calming. From here, you might like to bring your right knee in towards the chest. And just keeping it there. Aim to relax the shoulders, the elbows, and bringing your right knee inwards. If it feels good for you, you can extend the left leg out onto the mat and actively flex the foot on that leg. Notice what this feels like if you're taking the approach. Perhaps a feeling that you are grounding with a leg extension. Maybe the right leg feels stimulating in the abdominal area. Your option to take a breath out and lift your nose up towards the knee. And you might even hold here briefly, or if you wanted a bit more, lifting the straight leg off the floor. Releasing the straight leg down, keeping your knee hugged in and lowering your head and relaxing the shoulders again. Taking your left hand now to the right kneecap and letting the right arm fall to the side. With the out breath, slowly and gently drawing the knee across the body, aiming to keep your right shoulder on the floor. Sometimes it just takes off. Sometimes it feels very easy to hold it down. You could explore with a subtle rocking action how you could deepen your twist without applying any force. Maybe that movement helps you to keep the shoulder grounded and feel a bit more expansion into the glute area, the side. Then pause. And if it feels right, maybe now turning the head. Taking a deep, full breath in and out of your nostrils. Then come to center the head and roll onto your back, stepping your right foot down onto the floor and bringing the left knee in towards the chest. And you could give that knee a loving hug in. Same here, let your shoulders be easy. Option to extend the right leg out onto the mat. And if you do so, also flexing the foot so your toes are turning up a bit. Keeping the left knee quite firmly hugged in. And the same here, just by hugging the knee to the chest, you might feel there's a stimulation in the abdominal area. Option now on your next out breath, lifting the nose up towards the knee. You might hold here or even raise your straight leg slightly off the floor in this hold. Then lower the straight leg back down, keep your knee hugged in and let your upper body release back onto the mat. Right hand now to the left kneecap, left arm falls away from the body, and the same slow approach as you guide your knee across the body, holding your head centered, exploring a little rocking, bouncing action, and it could be minor, where you're exploring how it would feel to extend a bit more into the side of the body. Then pause and maybe turning your head in the other direction. As you take a deep breath in and out, you might center your head again, and you could even choose to roll all the way over onto that side if it works for you. Using your top hand to help you up, but coming directly upon the knees. And if your knees aren't good today, you can either choose to have a blanket under the knees, or you can choose to stay lying on your back and then hug the knees in wide towards the shoulders, similar to a happy baby. As when you're on your knees, widening the knees, touching the big toes, and then taking an out breath as you round the spine and allow your hips to sink towards the heels. Take a little shuffle into this shape, whether you're on your back or kneeling on the front of the body. Just moving a bit through the spine, the hips themselves. And if you find this position is comfortable, you might be able to rest your forehead onto the floor. But there is the block as a helper if you need some support. As you come towards a hold here in stillness, take deep, full breath, finding back to that same length of your in-breath and your out-breath. You might deliberately expand into your back body as you breathe. And you might find that although you're breathing in and out, not really holding your breath, that there is a subtle pause between each breath in and out, between each out and in breath. Just aware of it as you keep breathing. If you've retreated into comfort and your forearms are on the floor, you might extend your arms actively again. If you have chosen to be on your back, you might roll over to your side for a while. On the in-breath now, rolling your spine back up as you lift towards all fours. Keep your block nearby if you've been using it. Swing the feet over to one side. I will for now remove the blanket and change into a seated position. So I've now juggled my block underneath my sitting bones and I'm opting for an easy pose. However, if easy isn't easy, no point. You can extend your legs or do anything else that allows you to sit upright. Placing your hands down onto your legs or knees and wiggling your sitting bones apart so they're landing on the surface that you've chosen. You might then roll your pubic bone up towards your navel and then down towards the floor. A little tilt here in the pelvis, forwards and backwards. And after a few of those, you might create a very subtle circle just around your sitting bones, only lightly visible if you were to look at yourself, changing the direction of those. Then centering yourself, allowing your lower back to lengthen by letting your tailbone sink a little bit downwards. Now check that your abdomen is still moving in and out with each breath. Notice that your shoulder blades are likely apart, and if they aren't, please part them. But then let the shoulder blades at the same time come down the spine. Perhaps that lifts you a little bit taller in your seat. Then lift all of your fingers. Keep the palms themselves grounded. And land one finger at a time back down. As you are more aware of your hands, the way you sit, you might now move your head in a very subtle figure eight. Noticing any moans and groans in there, but keeping it soft and flowing, not looking for an outcome, just being here and noticing. Maybe with a little wobble, then center the head. Now move your tongue through your mouth. You might create a fair bit of saliva this way. If you do, swallow. And now move your jaw. If that causes a yawn, let it out, perfectly normal. Then move your lips. And now blink a few times. With your eyes then closed, perhaps, rolling the eyes up to the ceiling and down towards the floor, to the center, to your right, and to your left. If this eye movement feels good, circle your eyes a couple of times in one direction and a couple of times in the other direction. Then let go of that movement too, and notice how you're sitting now. These tiny little movements might have brought a sense of stillness. Potentially, you even feel easy to sit now. If it is right for you, join the palms of your hands in Anjali Mudra in front of your heart space. Your thumbs might gently attach to the sternum. Embarking on 3 rounds of the universal sound of Om to let the vibrations assist our well-being. We'll begin with an in-breath together. Perhaps you're aware that after each Om, there's a moment of stillness. It is there deliberately, and even now, still sitting after the sound, you might feel the vibrations working. Take a deep breath in from the belly right up towards the collarbones. And allow a sigh out of your mouth. You might relax the hands down in front, open your eyes. And you could choose to roll over the ankles as we return onto all fours. If you don't want to be on all fours right now, this is fair enough. There's no reason to be there. I will demonstrate what you could do on your back in a moment. If you are choosing all fours, place the knees at hip distance, spread the hands out at about shoulder distance, and slide your wrists a tad bit further forward and out from underneath the shoulders. If you choose to practice on your back, you could do and explore a similar shape. For you, you could take a breath in, lengthen a little or a lot, and then breathe out as you could hug the knees in your nose to the knees. So that could be a variation of a lying cat-cow position. If you're on your hands and knees, we can do the usual, breathing in from a neutral spine and breathing out to push the floor away and round the back into the cat. Option to come to neutral or lifting tail and gaze on your in-breath and then pushing the floor away again as you breathe out to round the spine. No matter whether you're on your back or on your hands and knees, keep flowing for a few more breaths. Now, if you're on your back, as we come back to neutral, you could move wildly like a bug on its back. If you're over the front, hands and knees, you might move a little bit more creatively and find some ease in your body as you could circle, lean, and move the way that serves you best. If you're on your back now, perhaps rolling over to one side. If you're on the front, as I am, tuck the toes under. If this feels right, lift the knees off the floor for a down dog, and then start to walk out the legs as we slowly find the way forward on our mats to a standing forward bend. On your out breath, once you got there, start rolling your spine up slowly. Taking a breath in to lift the arms. Maybe the gaze comes up. Then draw the hands down toward heart center as we come to rest in a pose called Samastiti. Take on the mountain pose, only the hands are different. Usually I encourage you to draw the inner heels towards each other. I'll do the same here now, firming up your stance. On the breath in now, lifting your arms, your gaze. Soften your knees and breathe out to fold forward. Take a breath in to come to a half lift. And as you breathe out, stepping your right foot back. You can be on the fingertips, and for those with healthy knees, you can have the knee down. Landing the hands down and stepping this into a plank or a kneeling plank. Exhale and find your way down onto the mat. Ground the tops of your feet and take a breath in as you lift for a cobra. Releasing the forehead back down. On the inhale, come back up, and if your knees are hurting, no need to be on them. You could come straight to a down dog. If you are on your knees, you might stretch back first, then come perhaps to a down dog or use your all-four stance. If you're up for it, take a breath and raise your right leg. On the out breath, helping or landing the foot forward. Come to your fingertips as you aim for length again in the spine, in the back leg. And the out breath to step the foot forward, folding down. Take a deep bend in your knees now and lift your arms back up as you breathe in. And draw the hands down to heart center when breathing out. Take a deep, slow breath in and out here. We go again for one more round. Breathing in as you might lift your hands and gaze. Soften the knees as you draw the hands down the midline, forward fold. An in-breath here to lengthen spine, half lift. The out-breath to step the left foot back. Find the length again in your spine, the back leg, you might be on your fingertips here. And from there, stepping back towards the plank posture, kneeling plank is fine. The out-breath, elbows stay in as we lower again to the mat, forehead might rest. Tops of the feet into the ground, lift it back up. Find your cobra variation. You could go a bit higher, you could float the hands. And on an out breath, releasing the forehead back down. On the inhale, come onto hands and knees or directly to your downward facing dog. Same on this side, left leg might lift. And with the out breath, aiming with the foot forward, helping, wiggling it there. And eventually coming to your fingertips as you find length again in your runner's lunge. Inhaling. And on the exhale, step it forward, folding back down. Take a deep bend into your knees and lift your body again. Taking hands back down toward heart center. As we might rise again into our mountain variation, squeeze your inner heels together again. Find your steady gazing point. And on the breath in, raising the right heel or knee together with your arms. Bring your hands to the heart, stepping out to the side and back, aiming for a hip distance stance and bend into your front knee. You might be able to see yourself, and you could squeeze the feet in and find your hips facing forward. Option to keep the hands resting here at heart center, or perhaps even lifting the palms, touching up and above. You might cross your thumbs if you keep the palms touching. You might notice that is tight in the shoulders. You could then separate the hands. If there's still tightness in the shoulders, you might bring them back down to heart center. But otherwise, you could look up towards that space, or even just steadily gazing forward. Warrior one. Deliberately, there was a moment of stillness. As you could take your next inhale to raise the back heel, bring your hands back down to heart center. We'll shift the torso forward, and if this is good for you, hold here or find a piece of furniture wall to hold onto. Otherwise, could you lift the back foot off the floor, flex it, and maybe lift the leg up behind as you lean your torso forward. Keep your toes and the pelvis facing down. Even your gaze is down, aiming for length here in the whole spine. Warrior three. If your hands feel good here, keep them there. You could open them wide or extend your arms forward as well. Landing your foot down, releasing your arms down, taking a breath to lift them back up and land the hands back in Anjali Mudra in front of your chest. Inner heels might be active again. Returning to the mountain, standing strong, steady gaze. On the next inhale, could you lift your left heel or knee? And as you bring the hands down to the heart, stepping the foot out to the side and back, as you land the whole foot down, bring a bend into the front knee. Again, finding your stance where your hips are facing forward. The front knee over your ankle joint, and then the feet start squeezing inwards a bit, firming up a solid base. Same here, you can leave your hands touching at heart center, or you could raise them upwards. Maybe keep the palms together, perhaps following that with your gaze. If you prefer, the hands can separate or stay touching. And at any time, could you bring them back in front of your chest? Are you looking up and still aiming for length in your neck? Feeling solidly grounded within the stillness of a warrior one. You might now take a breath in to lift the back heel and bring the hands back down to your heart. You might tip the body a little forward, and the option here is to leave your big toe on the floor. If you don't, raise the leg but flex the foot. You might then start to lean further forward and lift the leg up behind you, turning your toes to the ground, the pelvis to be balanced, and looking down, but with the length in the neck. And the top of the head is almost reaching towards the sole of the foot in length. Option to reach arms forward, keep them there, or open them out in the aeroplane style. Landing your feet together, releasing your arms, taking a deep breath to lift the arms. Maybe the gaze comes along, and drawing the hands back down into heart center. Drawing inner heels towards each other and allowing yourself to observe the response within yourself. What is it like? Can you feel your heart beating under your hands? How's your breath? Is there stillness within your gazing point? You might now choose to release your arms and step your feet out wide, but maybe using to face the long side of the mat. Turning first your right toes to face to the short side. And then your left heel to come a bit out towards the other short side of the mat. Your pelvis is lightly open towards the long side of the mat. And you could now bend into the front knee, so to perhaps place that on top of your ankle joint. You can even have a look forward here, aiming to align your knee with your toes facing forward. Sometimes when we let go of the strength in our foot, that knee falls inwards. And we want to have the foot strong on the floor. Once that feels strong, the back leg is straight, pull the feet lightly inwards. Turn your gaze forward and take a breath to lift your arms up. Now that the arms are up, let your shoulders be easy. And as you could see my arms, I keep a softness in the elbows so that I make sure I've got plenty of energy in my arms, but my shoulders can relax. And you might have a similar approach here. However, sometimes it feels tough in the shoulders to raise the arms this way. And if that is you today, turn the palms of the hands upwards from the beginning. More so, set the attitude of strength and length in your arms. And that would be reflected in your fingers as you might look towards the fingertips of your front hand. Warrior 2. Stand with strength in your legs and ease in the upper body. The breath is moving your tummy. With your next inhalation, straighten the front leg, lift your arms, release your arms and turn your feet to look towards the long side edge of the mat. Taking a breath in to lift both arms back out to the sides, choosing your preferred shoulder position there, and then tilting to one side as you breathe out and maybe looking down towards that side of the foot. And as you inhale, come back with the scales in balance. And on the out breath, change that to the other side. You might follow that with your gaze as you breathe in, come to center. And out, and if you like a different gazing point, you could look to the upper hand instead. Inhaling, arms come out, tall, solid stance. Out breath as you bend to the side. Let's do that once more to each side. Choosing a gazing point as it suits your neck. When you come back into the center now, release the arms. Let shoulders be easy, even give them a little soft wiggle, and that could ripple all the way down into your hips. Turning now your left toes to the short side edge of the mat, and the right heel a tad bit out to the other short side. Stance is quite wide as you bring a bend into the front knee. Same here, we're aligning that over the ankle joint as well as with the toes. So take a look down, see the foot is spreading out but active on the floor. The back leg is long. And from there, you could draw the feet lightly inwards, feeling the firmness in your stance. Your hips, however, are open towards the long side edge of the mat. Once you're here, turn the gaze forward and a breath in, perhaps to raise the arms. Try it the same way, the classical way, the palms are facing down, and then begin to adjust it. If you know now your palms need to face up, no reason why they couldn't. As long as you're holding your arms with the strength of attitude, the fingers spread out so the energy can flow, perhaps even the elbows soft to find ease in your shoulders. Maintain the strength in your legs, the energetic strength in the arms, and let your belly move in and out with each breath. Perhaps you found a moment of stillness within this strength. On the inhale, straighten the front leg, lift your arms. On the out breath, release your arms and turn your toes back towards the long side edge of the mat. And inhale here as you could open your heart and arms, bending the knees, and you might use your legs to slide the hands down on. It is your choice how you land in this standing forward fold. I have chosen to bring my hands down. Mine might even land on the floor, but this is up to you, and you could also use a block underneath your hands. If you're not working with a block, you might bring the hands back so your fingers are aligning with the toes. Lifting the shoulders lightly into the shoulder socket and making your upper body heavy towards the floor. Please keep a micro bend in both of your knees rather than locking them. And shift the weight slightly forward while the feet stay grounded. We're leaning towards the toes. Keeping the shoulders lightly lifted here and starting to lengthen your exhalations. So now bringing your breath out of balance, shorter in breaths and longer out breaths. No actual need to count, but a good reason to feel into it. How is your mind dealing with the stillness? On your next inhale, rise up onto fingertips, lift your torso and lengthen your spine to the front. Then bring your hands back down and a landing, just briefly, one knee down after the other if possible, then lying directly down onto the front of your body. The forehead might rest down, and you could choose to place your arms alongside the body. Perhaps starting with the palms of the hands facing upward. As you find length out through the pointed toes, your knees might lift a little. And on the in-breath, could you lift your arms, the head, the chest, and the legs? Mindful that you're using your inner thighs, adductor muscles, to keep the legs maximum hip distance apart or a bit closer. If you can, keep that lift into Shalabhasana, palms facing up, fingers reaching back, toes reaching back. If you need a break in between, you can lower down and perhaps join back in when you're ready. You might now explore turning the palms to face you. See how that impacts the lift in the upper body and in your arms. You could finally turn the palms to the floor, still reaching back down towards your toes, aware of the changes in the upper body and arms. Then relax that down onto the mat. Have a little wiggle here through the pelvic area, your lower back. And if your knees are causing you trouble today, roll onto your back, give the knees a hug. If you're with me, bring the hands underneath your shoulders. Take an inhale as you rise. And then on the exhale, finding your way back towards the heels. You can choose now to keep your knees rather close or widen them. And if you're on the knees, actually, you could release your arms along the sides
Hands next to your feet. Head can rest to the floor or a block or float. I have now even opted to tuck the chin in and bring my head closer towards the knees, curling completely into a child's pose with the aim of finding a bit of stillness in that inward focused position. Your anchoring point might be your breath. If you are lying on your back, please stay. If you are in a child's pose, next help us to uncurl the spine towards the seat. Lift the shoulders, give them a gentle shrug back as you lift your head. Take one deep breath in through the nose, a sigh out of the mouth, and then beginning to roll yourself onto your back. If you enjoy the legs up position but like some support, grab the block by the side of the mat. Feet will land, arms might rest, and they could be alongside the body to support you. Your toes are pointing forward, you've got a hip distance stance there. And for the inhale, just tilting your pelvis, the spine flattens out, and then squeeze the hips up into the air as you breathe out. Take the block, slide it underneath the sacrum, could be flat halfway up. Before you lift your feet off the ground, bring the knees loosely over the chest, find that last little wiggle on your hip support, and then perhaps extending the legs up towards the ceiling. I would hope that this is comfortable for you, but if it isn't, please bring the feet down to the chest or onto the floor at any given time. If you feel supported with your block underneath, you can widen the arms a bit, let the shoulders open towards the ceiling and relax to the floor. Find a tiny little movement now in your toes. And engage mentally, not only in this movement, but also in the energy that you're using, as well as the rippling down of that energy down towards the pelvis, ultimately towards the torso. Then stop all movement and just be. Your gaze could be fixed at your toes, or you might choose to close your eyes. Enjoy the stillness of this light inversion, observing yourself in the sense of how does it feel to be upside down? What does my energy do? How am I feeling in the mind? What's my emotional state right now? If you need to take a grip on your block again, feel free to do so. Before you might lower your knees back to the chest, your feet dropping gently towards your buttocks, and then stepping one foot down after the other, roughly landing them back at hip distance.
As you breathe in, squeeze your bottom up into the air. Hold it there. Tailbone might draw up towards the knees while you remove the block from underneath. Then take time to roll the spine to the floor. As you land, allow yourself to notice, is there movement that is required from your body? If there is, follow a gentle suggestion of movement. Or if you wanted to come straight into Shavasana, wiggling your feet out wide for a constructive rest, you could drop the knees inwards. Or you might slide your legs out with or without support underneath the knees. Toes in that case might roll outwards. You could snuggle your shoulders to the ground with a bit of a wiggle. And once we are all here, the head is facing upwards, where you could choose a steady gazing point, or you might rather choose to close your eyes. The ultimate pose of stillness is Shavasana, or your resting pose. Allow yourself to land within that stillness, learning about yourself as the body and the mind might choose to wander. And returning to this idea of stillness over and over again. Once you have chosen this shape and entered the stillness, if your mind finds it useful, you could repeat to yourself, I am kind. I am kind. I am kind. Let the words sink in, then let them go. Within the stillness created, listen to the sounds around you. Sounds within your own space. Sounds coming in from outside. No need to know what the sound is about. Just listening. Then return your awareness to the body. Notice your feet. The joints in your legs, the ankles, the knees, and right up to the hip. The whole of your legs and feet. Take awareness into the buttocks, the pelvis. Allow yourself to observe the lower back, the gentle movement in the belly. Feel into the front of your ribs, the sides of them, and the backs of the rib cage on the floor. Notice your shoulders, the elbows, the wrists, the little joints within your hands and fingers. Then your arms and hands together. Take awareness now into the neck, the throat, and finally bring it to the head. Notice if that feels supported, heavy or light. And let softness ripple over your face. While you still feel your breath moving through the nostrils. The breath is moving in and out. A reliable focal point. As you are the observer within the stillness of your body, notice what else might arise emotionally, thought processes, feelings. And take it all in as it occurs within this very moment. When we indulge in stillness, it becomes like a clear day. Perhaps clear-headedness. Such an elusive and wonderful gift. What will it take to get really clear about your next step at this point in time? It may come down to clarifying values and priorities, taking cues from your journal and from what has been given you the most joy lately. Reflect on what is truly providing the most happiness and use that as a starting point to make decisions in the future. When it comes to your personal joy, the answer may be clearer than you think. You might choose to repeat once more to yourself 3 times. I am kind. I am kind. I am kind. You might now choose to return your awareness to the sounds. Those immediate sounds that you hear when you pay attention. And further away or quieter sounds. You might then choose to deepen your breath. Perhaps bring subtle movement back or stretching. Before you could choose to roll onto your side or rise over the front of the body. Joining me in a seated position if that's right for you. Perhaps touching palms together again and placing thumbs gently towards the sternum, Anjali Mudra. While your eye gaze could be down or the eyes could be closed. We'll repeat the 3 rounds of Om, our universal sound, but allowing this last, the 4th of the sounds, to be the silence for a moment before the next Om. Let's begin with the breath in. Within the stillness, lift your heart. Then we'll extend with a light bow to acknowledge each other. Namaste.